Well, this isn't something I'd be able to do in the normal course of events. In the normal homily, I couldn't bring you on a sort of field trip to the outdoors. But here I am at the church at Duncton, making this short film for you. It's good to be here, partly because this is the only one of our churches I haven't made any of these little films from so far in the course of this lockdown. And of course, it's a beautiful place. The birds are singing, the beautiful fields all around me, there's horses over there, and it's just a fantastic place to be. But more important than that is the fact that I'm standing here in a graveyard. This is a graveyard full of stories. Since I first arrived here, I think I must have buried about 60 or 70 people here. There's Jill Wilkinson buried over there. She was buried just before the coronavirus lockdown changed the way that we do funerals. There's countless priests buried here, all behind me. All those matching graves belong to the Jesuits, and there's lots of them there. There's an old friend, Father Dominic Rolls, buried in the churchyard over there. My own parents, their grave is over there. So it's full of stories, full of exciting recollections of people who I've known and loved. But there's another reason that I've brought you here today, and that's because in the middle of this Easter season, as we remember all those wonderful stories about how the risen Lord met his disciples in the 50 days of Easter, we mustn't forget where it all begins. The whole Easter story, everything that we're celebrating, begins at a grave. It was a grave with a real dead body, dead, buried in the grave, sealed in, forgotten, gone, everything done. The world before Easter was another world. It was a different world. It was the world where the dead didn't rise. So Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, but Jesus himself, the miracle worker, is himself dead now. So that must all be over, surely. Except the apostles have discovered that this is not the case. They now live in a world where death is not triumphant, death is not victorious. The arrogant power of death, its arrogant claim to defeat all, is now proven to be a lie. The apostles live in the world where death has been defeated and everything looks different. All of them apart from Thomas, that is. Thomas wasn't there that first day when the risen Lord appeared to the others, and he tells them he refuses to believe until he can touch the wounds of Christ. It's not that he cannot believe, he refuses. His world, still living in the world where death is triumphant, is so different from the world where they are living, the world where death has been defeated, that he simply will not jump that gap until he sees the risen Lord. But when he does, just one word, just one look, and it's my Lord and my God. Thomas has understood the truth. He's joined the other apostles. He's now living in the new, wonderful, glorious world, the world of after Easter, where death no longer triumphs. To start with, Thomas sees the world in a different way to the other apostles, and therefore everything looks different. Because he sees death differently, he sees everything in the world differently. The ever-wise Dag Hammarskjöld once said, "In the last analysis, it is our conception of death which decides our answers to all the questions life puts to us." In the last analysis, it is our conception of death which decides the answers to all the questions life puts to us. That is such an important thing for us to realise, and that really is why we're here in the graveyard today. Being here forces every one of us to ask ourselves, what do I really think about death? Every single one of us is going to end up here or somewhere very like it one day. The present time, by which I mean Easter time, but also the time of the coronavirus crisis, is a time when we cannot avoid thinking about death. We cannot run away from it, we cannot hide from it, we cannot pretend that it doesn't exist. It's very common in our culture to treat death as something to be avoided and hidden from, but let's not do that. Let's not conspire to see death as something to be hidden from. Death is a gift. Our mortality is a gift. It's something given to us because as Christians we believe that death is not the end. If you believe that death is a completion of something wonderful, our life on earth, and the gateway to something even more wonderful, If you believe that death is a final healing, healing of all our sinfulness, healing of our frailty, our foolishness and fragility, our arrogance and pride and stupid self-sufficiency, if you believe all of that, then you see the world in a different way. You see life utterly differently. And this mortality, this sense that we have this chance to understand that mortal life is finite and our days are numbered, is a really, really precious gift. You know, the eulogy that will be spoken over your remains has not yet been written. We don't know when it will be. It might be many years, might be months, might be weeks, might be only days. We don't know. But the life that will be remembered, well, that is in your control. The life that is to be written about depends on the decisions that you make. And the decisions that you make depend on what you believe about death. Mortality is a gift. It obliges us to realise that we cannot put off living well indefinitely. There are only so many chances left to us, only so many opportunities to make the important decisions that bring us closer to being the people that God created us to be. In the last analysis, it is our conception of death which decides our answers to all the questions life puts to us. Life has many more questions to ask us. To prepare ourselves to answer them, where better to start than at a tomb? That's where it all begins. What do you really believe about death? Perhaps you've never thought about it, but even if you've never thought about it, there's something there that you believe that affects your decisions. Of course, we know there are lots of painful deaths, sad partings, inexplicably short lives that make us cry out, why? But it's your death that I want you to think about today, just as I need to think about my death. What do I really believe about it? What I really believe about death, is it the end? Is it extinction? Or is it the gateway to something glorious, something wonderful and beautiful and extraordinary? Do I live in the world of Thomas before he sees the risen Lord? Or do I live in the world of the other apostles, which Thomas joins them in, the world where death is no longer triumphant? Whatever we believe about death affects every single important decision that we make in our lives. All of our priorities, all of our projects and plans, all of the things we hope for and long for and dream of, they all depend on what we believe about death. This Easter time is a great time for us to get in touch with what the Church teaches about death, with what the risen Lord teaches us about death. Thomas discovered the truth. Have you? Have a wonderful weekend and a continued very, very happy Easter.